In this lesson, we will learn about how we can write simple Node applications. We'll also learn about Node modules and how Node modules enable us to organize our application into multiple files. We also learn about the different kinds of Node modules and how we can import Node modules into our files of our Node application and make use of them within our application. First, let's learn about Node modules in a little more detail in this lecture. JavaScript, when it was first designed, was meant to be a scripting language to be used within the browser. So the small realm within which it was supposed to be used is the browser. Now, as you understand from this specialization, JavaScript has gone way beyond its original intention and now is being used for writing applications, both to be run using frameworks within the browser and also to run applications on the server side, as we will see in this course. JavaScript originally was never designed with any common libraries. If you look at standard programming languages like C, C++, Java, and so on, they all have standard libraries that enable you to access the underlying hardware and also provide a structured way of organizing the application into multiple files and then combining them together when you create an application. JavaScript never had any of this support when it began, because as we understand, JavaScript was not designed for the purpose for which it is being used today. But of course, people understood the difficulties when you need to expand JavaScript beyond a single file, which is used as a scripting language for the browser. Now, if you have a very large JavaScript application, it becomes cumbersome to write the entire code in one single file. And obviously, you want to resort to be able to break your application into multiple files. Now, unlike traditional programming languages, JavaScript never had a way of distributing the code into multiple files and then combining them together. So this is where the CommonJS API came in to fill in this gap that fills in the needs for some common applications. And this CommonJS format defines a module format that can be used for breaking up your JavaScript application into multiple files. And Node adopts the CommonJS format for organizing our JavaScript application into multiple files. And within JavaScript, with the CommonJS format, each file becomes its own Node module. So let's learn a little bit more about Node modules in the rest of this lecture. So as I just mentioned, each file in a Node application becomes its own Node module. So the file or the JavaScript file defines the boundary for a Node module. So within that file, the CommonJS specification provides a variable called the module variable, which is a JavaScript object. And this gives you access to the current module definition within a file. And on this module object, you have the module exports property, which determines the export from the current module. So when you assign something to the module exports property, then that becomes the exported value from the current module, so that when this module is imported into another file of our Node application, then whatever is exported from this module becomes available in the second application. We'll look at an example in a short while. When you need to import a module into another module, this is where the require function is used to import the module. So as we would notice in a short while, the require function is used to import a Node module that is defined in another file into the current file so that it can be used within our Node application. Node modules can be of three kinds. We have file-based Node modules, where we define the Node module within a file within our application and then make use of it within our application. Then we have core modules that are already part of Node. The Node designers kept these core modules intentionally small so that Node can be kept small and also provide sufficient functionality so that external module designers can add in their own functionality that can be leveraged when we develop Node applications. So the core modules include path, file system, OS, util, and a few others. We will encounter some of them as we go along in this course. Then we have external Node modules. These are third-party Node modules that are developed by Node developers and then made available through the Node ecosystem. So these external Node modules can be installed within our system using npm. So many times you would see us installing using npm install and the name of the Node module, and that will be included within our Node application in a folder named node underscore modules folder. And we will encounter external Node modules in a later lesson in this course. How do we make use of Node modules? When you need to use a Node module within another Node file within your application, then you would use the require function. I briefly mentioned about the require function in one of the previous slides there. The require function for file-based Node modules, you will specify this as require and then specify the path to the file which contains the Node module. So you would say require dot slash the module name if the file exists in the current folder within which your Node application exists. So this specifies the relative path to the file from the current location. And also for the core and external modules, you would normally specify them by saying require and the name of the module. You won't explicitly specify a path for it. If it is a core module, it's already part of Node and so will be automatically included. If it is an external module, then it will be installed either within the Node modules folder in the current folder, or if the Node doesn't find the external module within the Node modules folder in the current folder, it will go up to the next higher level folder looking for the Node module, or the next higher level folder and up the hierarchy until it locates the Node module, which will then be imported to be used within your Node application. If it is unable to find the Node module up the hierarchy, then it will obviously raise an error saying that the Node module is missing. This way of organizing is very useful in the way the Node application's structure is defined, as we will encounter more in the later part of this course. With this quick introduction to Node module, let's take a look at an example which we will do as part of the exercise that follows this lecture. As we learned in this lecture, a Node module boundary is defined by the file that contains the code here. So here I have an example of a Node module defined as rectangle.js, and in there you can see that I'm using two exports here. I'm saying exports.perimeter and exports.area, and you see that here I am not using module.exports because exports itself is also a shortened version of module.exports. So if you don't want to use module.exports completely, but instead just want to use exports, then this is another way of writing those items that are exported from the current Node module. So here we are exporting two functions, the perimeter and the area, from the rectangle Node module. Now, in order to make use of this module in another file, then let's take a look at the index.js file. And the very first line in this file, you will notice that it says var rect is equal to require and within quotes /rectangle. So this is specifying that the rectangle module is going to be imported in here and made use of within this particular file of our Node application. So this is how we would define Node modules. And this is an example of a file-based Node module. We will encounter the core and the external Node modules in later lessons of this course.